On this, my sword, I swear, to shield the Firebird's flame forevermore.
What's up, everybody? This is Matt Kim from IGN here, and we're here with very special guests. We're here with the Tekken team, who have just made a really big announcement at the Game Awards. So I'm here with executive producer Katsuhiro Harada, game director Kohei Ikeda, and producer Michael Murray.
Hey.
And they just announced that Clive from Final Fantasy 16 is the next guest character for Tekken 8.
New challenger!
Here to even the odds. Any objections?
So can you give us a little background on this collaboration, sort of how it came together? Did you meet, have drinks with Yoshi P and decide that this is going to happen?
まず、バックグラウンドとしては、
He was mentioning that, we did have the guest character from Final Fantasy 15 originally, and so there's that as kind of a base. But also, Harada was mentioning that both games were kind of quite synonymous with PlayStation back in the day, and the taste of the graphics he felt were quite similar, so they kind of lend themselves well for this type of collaboration. And then also we had heard that Yoshida-san from Final Fantasy 14 was going to be making 16, and we thought it'd be great if we could talk to him and maybe see how it gauge his temperature on the subject, right? So then Harada began talks with him as Yoshi P is the main contact. But then they were thinking that, we really, if we're going to do this, they should be playing the game and get really all the intricate details before we start creating our side of it. So Harada and actually Nakatsu met with the dev team early on and played in development build of the game to get a handle on it.
I feel like that must have been kind of a challenge because Clive has quite a varied moveset. He throughout the game, I don't think it's a spoiler to say, but he gains a multitude of different abilities from various icons. And so how was the process of sort of incorporating all this different abilities into his kit?
So
Nakatsu was just mentioning that when he was playing the game originally, he also felt the action was quite smooth for Clive, for all of his animations and attacks, but then also there's being able to use the abilities from the icons that you were talking about, and so he wanted to make sure that all of the icons were available in some way while playing the character in our game. But then after talking to the Final Fantasy team, they gave him a little bit more details about what the actual base of the character is, etc. And he decided that they should focus on I think it's Ifrit and Phoenix as the core of Clive's abilities in our game. That said, he does have access to all the different skills.
あれだよね。落とし込むのは割と苦労してるけど。
I was just mentioning that when he first picked up the game and played it, Final Fantasy 16, that he felt that it was quite action oriented. That you could do a variety of different attacks, like you mentioned, but also there was kind of like combos and stuff in the game already. So he felt that made it a bit easier to port the game to ours, port the character to our game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna say, Final Fantasy 16 is a bit of a departure for Square Enix's game. It's more of an action game. So I was wondering if that contributed to the decision to include Clive, but it sounds like sort of the discussions happened even before development started. Very cool. I think the use of icons in the trailer is something that was clear to see. You could see Ifrit's abilities and Phoenix's ability. But one thing that caught me by surprise was Torgal, the inclusion of Torgal into Clive's abilities. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
絶対最初から入れようって言ってたよ。
That was something that the team decided early on was when we saw the dog. He's Wolf, sorry. He's got to be in the game in some form. That was one of the first elements that actually got decided.
あとやっぱり格闘ゲームは昔から例えばこれ他社さんの例
I think and just to expand on that a bit more, the team, we're fighting game fans as a whole, and so it's a separate company's game, but the SNK's Samurai Spirits, Samurai Showdown, I guess, in the West. There's the character Galfard who says, "Go Poppy!" He has his dog, right? And that's just, that's something we love. And even in the Tekken series, we've got Leroy has his own dog, Sugar, that he can call out. So that's something that right away when we saw, we're like, we definitely need to do that.
あとはあれですね、
やっぱりファイナルファンタジー16のチームもポルガルをすごく
we even know Nakazu was saying that we even noticed that the Final Fantasy team themselves kind of had a special treatment of Torgal. He had various like plush toys and things like that were produced. So we saw how they felt about the Torgal. So for us as well, Leroy has his dog Sugar. And so in the game, when Clive uses Torgal and calls him out, not only is he in the type that you saw, but he also has a Fenrir version of him that you can use in the game. Not just that, but with ours, when he fights against Leroy, you can see that Sugar comes out, and then Torgal comes out, and they cross each other on the stage. So little things like that, those attention to details that were added.
From the trailer, I noticed this kind of stuck out to me, but I noticed that Clive looks a little beefier in Tekken. And I was wondering if you can tell me, did he hit the gym before being a guest character?
よく気づきました。
どうぞ。
そうですね。やっぱり鉄拳の世界に、
So Nakatsu just mentioned that one of the first things that came up, I think even the director of the Final Fantasy team told us that he would like us to adjust the Clive's frame a bit because our characters are quite beefy. And so we did kind of adjust his legs and lower body to make him more in line with our fighters when they're both on the same screen at the same time.
ちょっと面白いのがフィジカルはすごいパンプアップして強くなってるんだけど刀だけはちょっと短くなってるんですよ。
格闘ゲームの次。
そうそう。
Yeah, so Rado's mentioned it's funny that although he's gotten more muscular, his sword is shrank in size because, being a fighting game, it would give him way too much of an advantage if the sword was as big as it is in the original game.
Right, that makes sense. So as a guest character, as a character who's not from the Tekken series, is there a sort of method of picking guest characters for Tekken? Do they have to meet a certain requirement, or is it just more, this would be really cool to have this character, and it's all vibes based, if you will?
これは多分いくつかのパターンがあって僕らって実はゲスト
You're just mentioning it really comes down to the three of us and like our ideas and inspirations. It first has to be something we're quite interested in that we want to make happen in the game that we would feel is a good match for our brand. That said, there's sometimes that we choose it based on maybe fighting style or maybe just the atmosphere of the character we think would go quite well with Tekken. Other times, some people approach us and say, hey, how about this character or IP in the game? So it really depends, but often there's timing is even more important because there might be something that we want to do that although the other person that we're talking to is interested, the timing just doesn't work out with both of the IPs or something like that. So there's probably some ideas that we've been kicking around that many people would have been really excited about, but it just didn't pan out because of the timing.
Right. You mentioned that he has the gameplay from Final Fantasy 16 is a bit more action oriented, which is why he fit in with Tekken. But was there ever considerations of some other Final Fantasy characters, Cloud?
まあでも俺は正直ファイナルファンタジーからあと2人とか
Rara just mentioned that it's not like we only have to we're limited to one character from Final Fantasy. It might be cool if we had two. Who knows? But it's not something we can decide alone.
It sounds like your team worked pretty closely with Square Enix on this collaboration. I was wondering if was there anything that while working with them that you just felt on your side that you just had to get absolutely correct for when you brought Clive over to Tekken 8?
それはやっぱPV 見てもらったら分かると思うんですけど、
Well, Nakatsu just mentioned that there was many of them, but obviously Phoenix Gate and the way that I think you saw earlier today, that the way that they're portraying the icons during the action, where when you slam your opponent into the wall, actually he gets attacked by the icon and blasted across the screen. Or sometimes when you slam your opponent to the ground, there's another icon that does an attack and sends them flying through the air. And the way that these kind of transition seamlessly during the battle was something he really paid a lot of particular attention to detail in. Then also when Clive is transforming as well during the battle. These are all things that he thought he had to get perfect. And there were some things that we did some retakes and such, but that was like the Burning Blade,英語でも Burning Blade なのかな、
多分
probably Burning Blade. That it was a bit difficult at first because they portray it from behind the character shot camera-wise, where for Tekken you're side by side. So there's a little bit of adjustments and things and back and forth with that. But you know, when Yosei-san saw the final implementation of the game, he said, "Wow, it's FF16, isn't it?"
Right.
And Nakatsu was really happy to hear that.
You mentioned this earlier actually in our interview, and I kind of want to follow up on it, but you know, it's the 30th anniversary of PlayStation, and as you mentioned, both Tekken and Final Fantasy are both series that are sort of synonymous with the platform. You know, looking back, you know, after 30 years of the console, did you ever imagine that Final Fantasy and Tekken will ever come together in a way like this, and how do you feel about that?
そこは実はそのちょっとまあ今だから言えるところもたくさんあると思う。
So Hara was just mentioning that you know, as you said, they're both kind of titles that were synonymous with PlayStation, and also that kind of high-level 3D graphics at the time were similar. But not just that, it's something that I guess we can talk about now since so much time has passed. That actually back then, around Tekken 3 perhaps, is when a lot of our staff left the team and actually went to Square. You know, this is before Square and Enix merged. So, you know, although we were making different games at that point, they were still kind of our friends and people we worked really closely with. So he felt, you know, it would be interesting if we could work together again sometime in the future. It just turned out that it took a lot more time than he'd initially thought.
Amazing. Well, I mean, you know, and now here we are with Clive entering Tekken 8 and as the second Final Fantasy character in the series. And so I guess my final question then, if I may, just go down the line about what your favorite Final Fantasy game of all time is.
That's really tough. You know, I actually kind of learned Japanese by playing through the Japanese version of Final Fantasy VII. I think my girlfriend at the time hated me for asking so many questions about stuff. But if I have to pick one where, like, you know, with memories and everything involved, it's probably 11, because I think it was around Tekken 4. Everyone on the team was, we would wake up early and not go to work yet, and just we would meet up online in FF11 and play for a bit, and then go to work, you know, in the afternoon or something like that. So I just spent so much time with all of them online, and everyone was so excited to get the PlayStation with a hard disk so we could play FF11. So I have a lot of fond memories for that.
Amazing.
シリーズ
そう
僕はでも4、5、6は特に好き。
So Nakatsu is saying Final Fantasy IV because at the time 中学生だっけ?
多分そう中学生。
About junior high was his age range. And he said that he felt a shift in the narrative, as in a lot more narrative based, the storytelling, etc., and that it followed the main character Cecil. I'm not sure if it's the same in English. And that kind of transition from the Dark Knight to a paladin, and so just the storytelling and also the soundtrack to it really blew him away. He played it through several times, so it's really still fresh in his memory. Rado's mentioned that that's he likes 4 too.
僕はシリーズで実は11だけはその僕は11の元になったエヴァクエストをずっと
So Rado just mentioned that he didn't actually play 11 that much because he was more into EverQuest and those type of online games. But he said that mainly more recent memory, you know, 15 and 16 are some of his favorites just because they were so impactful when he played through them. But then, you know, if you had to go back to one of the more classic titles, I guess you could say, it would be 7, he said, just because there's so many scenes in the game that he can still remember to this day. That said, though, the more recent ones, 15, 16, especially he was saying 16, the score, the soundtrack really stood out. And that, you know, obviously there's a main theme song-wise for each installment, but this time, even beside the main song, there was always you know, many other songs included that really stood out and were impactful.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here in the studio today. Clive should be available in Tekken 8 today, I believe, so go check that out. And for everything else, keep it here on IGN.
We'll save ourselves, and we'll do it on our own terms.